O'Donnell here. As you can see, I'm not in my art studio today. No, I'm in my dining room and kitchen. Figured I'd have a little change of scenery. Today I've got my coffee. It's actually coconut. And the mug is from Mrs. Krinsky. She has great taste. I've got lots of free time because baby Nora is sleeping and I can tell on the baby monitor. So, we're all set to go. We're going to do things a little bit differently this week, and we are not going to have something that you turn in, so you don't have to email me pictures. We're going to have a little bit of an art history and technology lesson, and I'm going to actually be reading this book, and then we're going to talk about and look at some of the artists in the book and their actual artworks. So this is a book about different artists, real actual artists, and we're going to read it. We'll talk about the artwork, and then I have a few technology sites that I've added to this assignment if you want to take a look and explore. There's some really cool stuff on those. Okay, we're going to read. It is called This Little Artist, an Art History Primer, and it is by Joan Holub and Daniel Rode. Painting, shaping, making art. With creative joy, hands, and heart, little artists have great big imaginations. This little artist had Italy impressed. An architect, painter, and poet, he liked making sculptures best. Michelangelo is famous for painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and for his David and Pietà sculptures. This little artist chose to portray moms and their kids at home and at play. Mary Cassatt painted tender, loving moments in the everyday lives of women and children, which was an unusual subject in the late 1800s. This little artist painted pictures of his face, a starry, starry night, and sunflowers in a vase. Vincent van Gogh applied thick paint with wild brushstrokes to show his feelings. This little artist made blue art for a while, switched to rosy colors, then painted Cubist style. Pablo Picasso and George Braque began the Cubist art movement, showing objects broken into angled shapes. This little artist painted very large flowers, animal skulls, and skyscraping towers. Georgia O'Keeffe sat in her car or camped in a tent to keep away from bugs and the hot sun while painting nature in New Mexico. This little artist built a toy circus from springs, cranks, balloons, buttons, and other small things. Alexander Calder made hanging metal or wire sculptures that are called mobiles or kinetic art because they can move. This little artist liked attention and fun. His melting clocks and wild mustache startled everyone. Salvador Dali was a surrealist. Objects in his art often looked strange or melted. This little artist painted her life story with symbols of Mexico to celebrate its glory. Frida Kahlo was often ill in bed, where she would paint with a special easel. She made 55 pictures of herself called self-portraits. This little artist used objects like soup cans to make pop art paintings that delighted his fans. Andy Warhol, which remember we did one project about Andy Warhol, began as a shy advertising artist. He became a superstar with many famous friends. This little artist was a great poet too. He mixed words with doodles as he painted and drew. Jean-Michel Basquiat used ideas from pop culture, street life, and his Haitian and Puerto Rican heritage in his artwork. Okay, so this little artist. Now, if you actually get this book, in the very back, there are a bunch of other artists that are very interesting and very famous. Some of them we've actually talked about in class. So I would suggest this book. It's a great book just to kind of get started with art history. But now we're going to go over some of the artists in the book and their actual artwork. All right, guys, let's start. We are first going to look at the artist Michelangelo. And no, not the Ninja Turtle Michelangelo. Splinter actually named Michelangelo after this artist, the real Michelangelo. Michelangelo was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet. We are going to look at this sculpture, which is called a Pietà. What is a Pietà? Well, it is an image, or in this case, a sculpture of Mary holding Jesus after he was crucified and taken down from the cross. This sculpture is in St. Peter's Basilica. St. Peter's Basilica is where the Pope lives, which is in Italy. This sculpture is the only piece of art that Michelangelo ever signed. I bet he didn't have a teacher like me who told her students to always put their name on their work. Next up is Vincent van Gogh. Poor Vincent van Gogh. Literally, Vincent was very poor. But it did not matter how much money he had in his pocket. He loved painting. Vincent was an impressionist painter, which means he did not smooth out his paint. It was very, very thick. Vincent van Gogh only sold one painting his entire life. And now you can only buy his paintings if you just won the lottery. That's right. This painting right here sold for $82 million. It is called Portrait of Dr. Gachet. The man in this painting was Vincent's doctor during the last part of his life. Vincent had great respect for this man and made 2 paintings of him. The third artist we are going to look at today is Georgia O'Keeffe. Georgia was an American painter who loved to paint flowers, New York City skyscrapers, and the landscape in New Mexico. Flowers fascinated Georgia. She just loved them. This painting is called Oriental Poppies, and it is a painting of 2 poppy flowers. Just like we learned about and explored color, texture, and shape, those were Georgia's favorite things to explore too. She just loved using lots of color, different kinds of shapes, and all different kinds of textures. Our last artist is Jean-Michel Basquiat. Jean-Michel was an American artist whose parents were from Haiti and Puerto Rico. His paintings often look like graffiti, and he loved to use poetry and words in his artwork. We are going to look at this painting today called Dust Heads. This painting is 7 feet tall, huge, and it is a picture of 2 people. Their eyes almost look like they're spinning, and it appears that they're happy because it looks like they're smiling. What do you think? Well, that's about it, boys and girls. I hope you have enjoyed your art history lesson. And if you want to check out those websites that I posted on the assignment, ask your parents to give you those websites. Just some really cool stuff to take a look at. But I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about artists and different artworks. And I guess I will see you next week. Have a good week, guys. Miss you.